All right, Coach Steve here, and I have something to talk. It's a topic today that is kind of it's hard to process, and it's a very real subject that affects a lot of people, and there's a lot of misconceptions around it, and there's also it's surrounded with a whole lot of guilt and shame. And so this topic, what we're going to talk about, is stress eating as well as binge eating, where it comes from, like why it happens, and overall, like there's it's very easy to become addicted to food, especially in a society where it's like everything is stressful, right? Like you look at the economy, you look at like polar bears are bursting into flames because of global warming, like people aren't getting paid enough, rent's going up, like it's very easy to be stressed out, and our jobs are killing us, like it's so easy, right? And so what happens is when we're in this chronic state of stress. This is what this whole program is about, is reducing stress. So when you're in this chronic state of stress, your body is it's working so hard and it's getting nothing done. Like it's not repairing tissue, it's not utilizing anything. It's the state of fight or flight. Okay, and when you're in this state, you store body fat. Like this is what happens, right? So what we're going to talk about is why it happens, why we stress eat, what we can do to stop it, what it means, like where it comes from, really. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time here talking. This video is a little bit longer, so if you don't have time to watch the full thing, just make it as far as you can, pause it, come back later today. So I first want to start out with, like, sometimes you watch trainers, you watch these super fit people, and you look at them and you're like, you don't know what it's like. Like, you have no idea. And I want to tell you, like, I know exactly what it's like. I've struggled with multiple eating disorders in my life. I've had extreme impulses and urges that I felt were uncontrollable for months on end. And there was a 4-month stint where it was the worst it's ever been in my life. And now you probably heard the story by now of, like, if you've been following me for long enough, you probably heard the story of, like, I joined this weight loss program. I lost 48 pounds in 3 months, way too quickly. And then I started to rebound. And it was because my body just shut down. Like, I was so stressed out. I was exercising 4 hours a day. I wasn't eating enough. I was just like, I would get to 1 o'clock in the afternoon and I'd have to crash because I was so tired. I was doing personal training 10, 11 hours out of the day. The other hours I was either preparing food or was eating food, or I was like I literally got the advice from my coach to visualize eating food to prevent me from being hungry. So, you do that for 3 months and it's like, you can't sustain it, right? So my body was so stressed out. There was so much inflammation in it that I rebounded. And I've struggled in the past with eating disorders before, but it was too much. And so now, mind you, I don't think this is anything that I've ever said publicly, but it's a very odd thing to talk about, but I'm able to step out of it and realize it for what it is. But I would binge eat, but I wouldn't eat all the food. I would chew on it and then I would spit it out. And in doing so, you still absorb calories and your blood sugar still rise. So any calories you do absorb, that's getting stored even quicker. So it was a very, very harmful way of self-sabotage. I would just gain weight, and then I'd hate it, and I'd go 3 days without eating, and then I'd binge again. And then I would go like another 3 days with literally nothing to eat. I was a personal trainer at the time. I was doing 11 hours of training a day, and I wasn't eating. I was so unhealthy at that time. It was disgusting to look at. Like, it was hard for me to watch, but it felt so outside of my control. And it was very, very tough. And I remember it was like, my dad came into my room and I was in the middle of binging, and he sat down. He was like, Steve, like, your mom and I were at a loss. Like, we don't know what to do. And I started to cry. I was like, I don't know what to do either. Like, this is really tough. Like, this is the hardest thing I've ever had to give up, is because I was addicted to calories. I was addicted to sugar. I was addicted to Oreo cookies and Nutella and peanut butter and brownies, and like, I was addicted to it and I couldn't stop. And So my point being, I know if this is something you're struggling with, like I know it feels impossible to stop. And sometimes once you get started, you can't stop. Like once you open up 2 cookies, or once you have 2 cookies out of the package, you're gonna have the whole package. I know what that's like. And I know that it comes with a lot of guilt and shame. And so I want to eliminate both the habit, and I also want to eliminate the guilt and shame with you together. Okay? So let's change pace a little bit. Let's start looking at why this happens, how we can solve it, and realistically, like why it's not always our fault. Okay? Why the biological response is not our fault, but the way we respond to it, we are responsible for. Okay? All right, so let's talk about it. Here we go. Change of pace. Good job. All right, so why it happens. What happens when you, I want a red marker. What happens when you get stressed out is your blood sugar rises. Now, those of you who are, whether you're pre-diabetic, diabetic, whatever, you know what blood sugar is, you know how it reacts in the body. So little chart here. Blood sugar over time, stable, 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 stressful moment, chronic stress, high, 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 elevated. So now you've had a day of chronic stress. You're like, just picture, what's that law? Murphy's Law, where everything that can go wrong does go wrong. And it's one of those days where it's like you're up here the whole day. And so you start to crave food, and you start to crave calories. Now, why is that? Like, why do you want sugar? Oh, it's because your body is trying to get you to drop its blood sugar so that it can calm the fuck down. Okay? And now as soon as you've been here, you know the process. As soon as you have that moment of, I gotta get my rag. But as soon as you have that moment of like, the bite of sugar, you have that Diet Coke, you have the pop, like whatever it is, you start to ease that stress down, but it's immediately spiked back up by guilt and shame. All those toxic emotions that get released afterwards. So now you can see how this becomes a circle, right? It's like you're stressed out, and then you eat something, and then you become more stressed out because you ate something. So now you're guilty, and then you eat something, and then you're stressed out, and then you eat something, and then you're stressed out, and then you eat something. Like you get how this works. Okay? So how do we break this cycle? How do we say, no, I'm stopping this? Well, one, we can manage our stress, manage the response to our stress. So how do we do that? We identify it. We become the fly on the wall. We identify like what it is that we need. Why are we responding the way we are? Obviously, so one, making sure that you're getting a good sleep, walking, eating right, all those things contribute to a lower level of stress. Easy. You're already doing those things. How else can we do it? Well, one, you need to develop a sense of self-awareness. Now, this is something that we cover weeks down the road, is how to become like this all-star self-aware person. Okay, but for a baseline level, you need to ask yourself, like, what is it that I'm craving? Is it sugar? Is it salt? Is it fat? Because each one of those has an option. Each one of those has a response. If it's sugar, it probably means you didn't get enough carbohydrates today. So instead of going for the bag of candy, maybe try some oatmeal. It's going to help lower your blood sugar, and maybe you just didn't eat enough today. Maybe you missed lunch. Maybe you missed your afternoon snack of like sweet potatoes and things like that. So try that. Okay, if it's fat, there's a good chance that there's some imbalance in your hormones, which we're going to talk about a week or two down the line. So if you're craving fat, now what I mean by fat is like almonds, butter, bacon, burger, like if you're craving those things, it's because you're missing some form of a sexual hormone. My best recommendation for that, get outside, 30 minutes, get sun exposed, supplement with vitamin D, that's another option. You want to go about 5,000 units to 10,000 units, always a good amount. Make sure it's with vitamin K2. Live Well has exactly that combination. I mean, if you I'll give you just get it. If you're craving fat when you're stress eating, you probably need it, so just grab it. If you're craving salt, it means your adrenals are working too hard. You probably didn't drink enough water throughout the day. So look back at your checklist. Oh, I was supposed to drink 3 liters of water and I drank 1. Okay, like we know why this is happening now, right? So salt, grab some water. Grab a huge glass, excuse me for a moment. Grab a huge glass of water. Sorry. So that is why it happens. Those are some of the responses. So what do they mean? Sugar, carbs, fat, vitamins, salt, water. You can mitigate these 3 effects by walking, getting sunlight, exercising, eating right, sleeping. So identify the hunger. Now, some people, it's like they come in, they're like, man, Steve, I stressed, like I was eating and I couldn't stop eating, but like when I started, it wasn't like my stomach was asking for food. It kind of felt like an impulse. And so the easiest question here is ask, like, identify the characteristics, right? So if your stomach is, if you're actually hungry, you're gonna feel it in your stomach. So you know what that feels like. You know the empty stomach feeling, you know the, I call it gurgling, stomach noises. What's this? Yeah, stomach noises. Let's just call it noises. This is what my partner and I call it. We'll be lying in bed. I was like, that was yours. No, it's mine. Empty stomach noises. All of these things could also mean water. So just check that out. Low energy. Irritable. Hangry is a real thing. Yeah, those are the main ones, right? So if your stomach feels empty, if it's making noises, if you have low energy, all those things will contribute to real hunger. Okay, now how do you know if the hunger is trying to trick you? Well, I missed one for the stomach. Let's go rewrite that. Stomach. If you're craving food in general, you're hungry. If you just want like food, like right now, I'm pretty hungry. I had a very early breakfast. I ate before I went for my walk. Anyway, so I'm, oh no, that's about right. I thought it was earlier. Anyway, doesn't matter. If you're craving food in general, like I am right now, then you're hungry. You're not having an individual craving, but if you just want food, like you're like, I could eat an apple, and like I had this when I first started nutrition coaching. It was like, if you're hungry enough for an apple and an egg, you're hungry. If you're not hungry. So if you can eat something that is a whole food, you're hungry. But if you want like chips, pop, juice, chocolate, candy, whatever, you're probably not hungry. So how do we go from stomach to head / stress? Well, this is usually one specific food, or it's consumed by the thought of food, or, geez, 5th grade handwriting, or you're been thinking about food the whole time, so you're consumed by the thought, or it's one of these specific things, right? It's generally not accompanied with what we just covered in the stomach, okay? So if you want one thing specifically, it's probably not real hunger. It's probably a craving. Okay, so identify it. Take a moment and not respond to what you're feeling, and just feel it. Just like, if I could eat anything right now, what would it be? And if your response is, I'd eat anything, then you're hungry. But if your response is, no, I want like a cheeseburger, you're probably not hungry. Okay? So those are, just identify the hunger. That's going to help you mitigate your stress eating, because you're going to be like, is this a stressful craving or is this a real thing? Like, is this big deal? Not a big deal. As well, like that's going to check off the self-awareness box too, right? So what are you seeking? And now I mentioned the story of when I went through that 4-month stint of like, I just chewing and spitting out food. And it was when I realized that I really wanted to say something, but I was holding back. I didn't know how to say it. I didn't know what to do, right? So I was holding back. I never actually said it. And so I continued this process. Like, it was, I didn't kick that kick that habit until maybe a year and a half ago. And now this story that I was telling you was multiple years down the line. And so I was still doing it periodically. Like I would do it maybe once every 2 weeks, once a week, and it would slowly fall off until one day I just cut it off cold turkey. Anyway, so what happened is that when I was doing it all the time, it was like, what was I really trying to do? And the act of spitting was I was trying to get rid of something. I was trying to say something. I was trying to get something out. Now that's a little bit of a woo-woo thought, but fact is, when I realized that, I stopped doing it, right? So I really wanted to quit my job. I was at a super toxic environment, like where people were extremely rude. Nobody helped anybody. Everybody was arrogant. Nobody listened to anybody. Management was a nightmare. Like it was just, the work environment was killing me. Like it was so stressful all the time. And it always felt like I was the only one who was doing anything. And I was always the one who was punished the most. And it was super damaging to who I was and my identity. Because I would then started to identify myself as like, well, I guess I'm gonna do all the work and get none of the reward. But that's not fair at all, right? So once I realized that, I was like, great, quit my job, good. And so what does it really mean? Like try to identify what it is that's causing it. So what are you seeking comfort for? You know, sometimes we go to food because it's easy. Sometimes we go to food because our parents gave it to us when we weren't feeling well. Whatever that reason may be, try to identify it and realize like what it is that you're actually looking for. Because I guarantee you, it's not a bag of Skittles. Like it's something more than that. So as we start moving forward through this program, you're gonna realize like, oh shit, like that's what it is. So buckle up. This is it. This is just something that you can use in your back pocket. Big takeaways today is like, is this stomach? Is this real hunger? Or is this not? And if it is real hunger, what do I need to do differently tomorrow to prevent that from happening? And how am I going to fix this today? Right? Easy as that. That's it for today.